When you start it, just don't stop. 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 Even if it sounds like it's about to.
Daily Solutions
It's
Podcast.
not gonna stop. It just keeps on going. When you start it, just don't stop. When you start it, just don't stop. When you start it, just don't stop.
Daily Solutions
And then
Podcast.
it stops.
All right. Welcome. Another episode of the Daily Solutions Podcast
Yep.
with me, Graham,
And me, Ashkahn.
but more importantly, me,
Ashkahn.
Graham.
Ashkahn.
So today's question is, how much salt should you have on hand at any given time?
How much salt? I got my general rule.
Was it going to be a lot? That's what I was going to say.
You don't want to have a little bit of salt. That's a big problem.
Trust us. This isn't the line of work for that.
So I like always having at least one float tank's worth of salt on hand. Your biggest float tank, if you have different models.
Mhm.
Like I never want to not be able to refill a single tank at any moment, because that way you're just prepared. You know, if whatever happens, you can totally drain and fill a tank. Because if you don't, all of a sudden, who knows? You know, you might have to shut that tank down for a few days. That's a lot of lost revenue. You know, that's kind of my comfort zone. Like if we're ever less than a full float tank's worth that we have kind of in storage or in our lobby or whatever, that's like the danger zone to me.
So really, that's like when you have your biggest float tank's worth of salt, like the order should be arriving on your doorstep that
Right.
day to replenish your salt.
Right.
So that's like the
little
lowest
sooner
possible
than that,
amount
yeah.
that you'd possibly want ever.
Uh-huh.
And that's just because something could go wrong, right? Like if your batch of salt gets contaminated by something in a float tank, then you want to be able to immediately, day of, start that refilling process.
Right.
So that makes sense. And then, other than that, it's, I guess, moving up from there, it's how much salt you keep on hand and how much you want to be reordering it.
Right. I mean, every company that I know of the price gets cheaper the more salt you order at once.
Right, that'd be weird if it was
It's
the
just
alternative.
more expensive. Like, you want how much salt?
No, that's really going to cost you this time. Yeah.
But and it's tempting. I mean, when we order salt, I'm constantly just in my head being like, I should just order 50,000 pounds, and then we'll get a warehouse and we'll store it, and then But when we've crunched the numbers, it's really hard to make the finances actually work out. Like if you're paying for storage, if you're paying to have storage that's just there to house salt so that you can order a bigger order to bring the price down, it almost never actually saves you more money than the cost of the storage space.
Yeah, like almost no matter what it is, even if we're talking like $75, $100 a month or something to store all that salt, it immediately eats into the profit margin that you would have had.
It just doesn't seem to work out. I mean, so here's the best idea we've had. And feel free to steal this one. But the best idea we had to solve this problem was just to replace all the furniture in our house with salt bags. Just make like a couch out of salt bags and like a salt bag TV stand and slowly. The problem was we realized that we'd slowly start losing our furniture over the course of us using the salt.
I also do think that same idea is applicable in a float tank lobby as well, and just have your whole lobby furniture made out of salt.
Just constructed out of salt bags. So that was pretty tempting, but we couldn't get over that.
I thought you were
idea.
going to say just invent anti-gravity and get away from this whole salt thing really solves the problem,
Yeah, that's the real solution.
So that said, how much salt do we order at a time when we order salt?
Well, so we keep salt in our lobby, and we
That
also
furniture thing
that
again, yeah.
furniture thing, kind of, yeah. And then we also have like a storage shed out near our office, which just kind of comes with our office. We're not paying any extra rent for it, so it's not part of the kind of math equation of salt cost. And basically we order as much as we can to fill those spaces, which for us ends up being about 10,000 pounds of salt. So that fills up our shed, and then there's a nice little stack in our lobby.
Yep, I think the biggest order we did was for around 15,000.
Yeah, once.
Yeah, and that was once again, it kind of spilled over into this area where we had to pay for a little bit of storage and kind of made it not worth storing anymore. So
And we were like filling tanks up right around then, right? So I mean that's mostly what we do, and then we're often ordering it at least so that lasts us about 6 months.
Yep.
We'll order that.
And once a year, we'll be doing our tank refills. It's kind of the regularity that we're doing that. So just to give you guys an idea.
So yeah, we'll do that tank refill, and we'll order salt right before that because we use a lot of salt in that process.
And, we have 6 float tanks. We're open 24 hours a day. We run around 1,300 floats a month. So we run a lot of floats that are using up that salt as well. Kind of when we do the averages, it ends up being about 1.1 pounds of salt per person is what we end up losing per float.
But, I mean, it really, like, going to the question of how much should you have on hand, like, if we didn't have that storage unit, we wouldn't be ordering that much salt.
Very true. On the other hand, like some of the centers we visited, if you just have a ton of back storage or you have all this space that you can use that you're not making use of, then order even more. Again, it only gets cheaper the more you have. And it's not like your Epsom salt is going to hit its expiration date.
Yeah, it's not going to go bad.
Yeah, so...
And you can make some nice furniture out of it. It's really...
All right, so there you have it. As much as you can, and never less than enough to fill your largest float tank.
Yep. Okay.
So thanks for tuning in. As always, if you want another question like this or even easier than this answered, feel free to go to floattanksolutions.com/podcast and send it in there.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Bye.